Good morning, everybody. We are the 30th Street Cycle Track Project. My team includes Shannon Mulderig, Danny Zavala, Tim Garrett, and myself, Chris Velasco. And today we're going to be talking about the 30th Street Cycle Track and our research that we have done into the project thus far. Just a quick overview of today's outline. First, we're going to provide some background information regarding the 30th Street Cycle Project, followed by a literature review, sampling and research approaches, and we're going to conclude with data collection methods on how we intend to study the cycle track. Just a quick overview of or a little bit of background regarding the 30th Street project. 30th Street is a major connector for the city of San Diego. It connects multiple neighborhoods, including neighborhoods such as Normal Heights, North Park, South Park, and Golden Hill. It is also one of the most historic and oldest neighborhoods in the city of San Diego. And 30th Street is also home to several local small businesses for the city of San Diego. So for our literature review, we are going to be analyzing the 30th Street Cycle Track in 4 subjects. The first of which is the travel demand imposed by the new cycle track, safety, cycle safety, pedestrian safety, and even vehicle safety, followed by comfort, and the business impacts that the new cycle track has induced. We're going to hand it over to my colleague, Shannon, who's going to start with travel demand.
Thank you, Chris. 2 notable studies from our literature review, one from Boston and one from Toronto, both showed the installation of protected bike lanes increases bike ridership along the roadways in which they're implemented. The Boston study analyzed trip data from a local bike share system. Given the inconsistency in the presence of bike share programs in San Diego, it's unlikely we would use similar data for our project. The Toronto study included a retrospective survey-based study, and this is a methodology we aim to incorporate into our strategy for 30th Street. In our study, we defined safety as a decreased likelihood of injury and deaths for cyclists. A study from the city of New York showed that protected bicycle paths reduce bicycle crash injuries despite an increase in bike traffic volume. A study from the University of Colorado found that cycle infrastructure reduced road fatalities for all parties, including motorists and pedestrians, in addition to cyclists. Safety outcomes are contingent on the metrics and parameters established by the researchers. So if the 30th Street cycle track is to be accurately assessed, an evaluation of previous safety conditions is necessary. And comfort plays an important role for cyclists and individuals experiencing comfort differently, with risk tolerance resulting from a complex combination of variables. Through our literature review, we learned about level of traffic stress, LTS, and bicycle level of service, BLOS, which are quantitative ways to study stress experienced by a cyclist on a roadway. But they both have their drawbacks since they don't take into consideration important factors like traffic volumes, pavement, quality, and more. One qualitative study from Belgium held discussions with children and their parents about their cycling experiences and found that traffic density, speed, visibility, separation from vehicles, surface conditions, and road markings were all important factors for comfort. We plan to blend LTS with qualitative data like surveys and interviews to evaluate comfort along 30th Street. Evaluating business impacts is a newer and less studied factor regarding the implementation of bicycle infrastructure, and the lack of compelling research leads to confusion and resistance from local businesses. A handful of studies we researched found that reducing travel and/or parking lanes to implement bicycle facilities, had positive or at least not negative impacts for the local economy. The methodologies we found in our research included comparing reported sales and sales tax revenues from local businesses, estimated customer counts for merchant surveys, and vacancy counts, but also qualitative data from interviews with shoppers and business owners to evaluate the business impacts of bicycle infrastructure. We plan to use survey and interview data to evaluate impacts on businesses. Now I'll hand it off to Danny to talk about sampling and recruitment approach for our project.
Thank you, Shannon. So our sampling and recruitment approach will be a two-phased approach consisting of surveys and interviews. In phase one, we will reach out to community planning groups like North Park Community Planning Group, community-based organizations like the City Heights Community Development Corporation, clinics, community centers, and schools, as well as community business groups like North Park Main Street, and this will be all done through online surveys. Our online survey will be designed to capture information from riders and non-riders and how they relate to the 30th Street Bikeway in terms of usage, safety, and impacts to nearby businesses. And in phase two, we will discover a deeper understanding of the community's overall feeling towards 30th Street through in-depth interviews. In our design surveys, respondents will be able to indicate if they would be willing to participate in a 15 to 20-minute phone interview where participants can elaborate on their survey responses. And in addition to willing participants, we also plan to reach out to high-volume businesses abutting 30th Street for interviews. This will help to ensure that we capture the perspective of commercial interests along this corridor. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Tim, who will elaborate on the data collection.
Thank you, Danny. So as you mentioned, we plan on using a mixture of data collection methods throughout this research study. These include primary data collection through manual observation, that is counting bikes to measure travel demand, as well as secondary data collection from the city of San Diego. Through this, we plan to analyze crashes, injuries, and fatalities, including those involving pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles on 30th Street, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods. We will calculate the before and after level of traffic stress network maps based on changes to the roadway infrastructure, and these can be compared to historical data to demonstrate the effect of the project. We plan on using surveys and interviews, as Danny mentioned, to get more information about perceived comfort and additional insights from a variety of community members, especially riders, non-riders, merchants, and customers. For business impacts, we plan on gathering data from merchants as well as customers, which is a technique practiced in other research, as Shannon mentioned, because asking customers and merchants will allow us to check some of the biases and assumptions that respondents are likely to have. Next slide, please. Some example questions we'd like to ask in the surveys and interviews. How has the project impacted various aspects of comfort? It's especially important considering that people experience comfort differently, even with higher quality facilities like cycle tracks available. We plan on asking important questions for merchants. For example, are customers changing up the businesses that they go to? We imagine that it could help or hurt certain types of businesses depending on the situation. So we will rely on phase two interviews to collect more in-depth information on the various factors likely to be brought up, such as parking and access for delivery vehicles. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the 30th Street cycle track is an exciting project for many people. That includes Todd Gloria, Catherine Blakespear, myself, and hundreds of other cyclists at the grand opening this summer. We plan to assess the impacts of the project through various aspects in order to understand how similar active transportation projects should be implemented in the future. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have.